What's going on, Bulls Nation? Welcome into the CHGO Bulls Podcast. Coming to you live from our CHGO studios here in West Loop, downtown Chicago. I'm Peck, Bulls_Peck, joined by Big Day Bow, BAWL Sports, Will the Goat Gottlieb, Will_Gottlieb, our pound producer on the controls, the one and only Joey Spathis at Joey Spathis. 21. And very pleased to have him joining us today. He's going to be with us for the entire show. The founder and one of the hosts of the No Ceilings NBA show, an incredible draft resource for all of you NBA hoops draft junkies out there, also known as just the NBA draft dude, the one and only Corey Tulaba. Welcome to the show, Corey. How are you, man?
Thank you for having me, man. Big fan of the show. Excited to be here. It feels good to talk the draft in the context of, the team that I grew up rooting for. So it's a real pleasure, and appreciate you inviting me on.
We appreciate you being here. We appreciate your work. We actually, I think it was 2 years ago, the last time the Bulls actually had the rights to their own first-round pick. Your colleague Max joined us for one of those shows leading up to the draft. Bulls fans, if you aren't following Corey and his team already on Twitter, you can. At Corey Tulaba is the personal account, and then follow No Ceilings at No Ceilings NBA. You can also subscribe to and follow their YouTube channel of the same name. Corey, so we are here in Chicago. Day 3 of the Combine went down today. Our guy, the GOAT, had a chance to talk to a lot of these lottery picks. Curious, before we dive into specific players, what is your take on the consensus take that this is kind of a weak draft class? And from a Bulls perspective at 11, do you think that if that is true, being sort of middle of the pack late lottery is a good thing or a bad thing?
So when people say it's a weak draft, they say that because there is no top tier, obvious all NBA kind of prospect, right? Like we're used to seeing Paolo Banchero, Victor Wembanyama, Chet, all of those guys. That guy doesn't really exist in this class where it's slapping us in the face at this exact moment. It doesn't mean that when we look back on the draft 5, 7, 10 years from now, that there aren't going to be all-star level players. There, most likely will. But what that means from a Bulls perspective is it actually kind of is a good thing because the tiers that you normally get don't really exist in this draft. You still have to draft the right guys. You still have to pick out of the pool that's available to you. Obviously, if you're picking at 1, you have more players available to choose from than you do when you're at 11 or 20, right? So it's better to have a higher pick. But there are still going to be similarly tiered talent-wise prospects where the Bulls are picking at that you might get at a 5, at a 3, maybe not at a 1, but maybe, right? Because this draft is that up in the air that maybe 5 different guys could go number 1 this year. And typically you might think maybe 2, maybe there's 3 guys, right? Maybe we thought it was Jabari. Then we realized it was Paolo, could have been Chet. This year, there's so many guys that it really depends on whatever franchise, the Hawks, whoever's on their board, whoever's leading that spot. That's who it's going to be. And it's not going to be just that obvious guy that we know leading up to the draft, at least not right now.
With this being considered that quote unquote weak kind of draft, and how does that change your approach with how, you look at these players and come up on them? Because I don't know how long you've been, covering the NBA draft, but I'm going to say it safely, it hasn't been a draft like this since you've been covering the NBA draft, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. But how does that change your approach, knowing there isn't that clear-cut guy from that top tier that you just talked about?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I really started during 2020, and I guess there are certain similarities because, we knew that LaMelo, Anthony Edwards, maybe James Wiseman. We knew that those guys were at the top of the draft in some order. We thought it was going to be Anthony Edwards, but we really didn't know. Even up until draft night, like Anthony Edwards was like, I really want to be a rapper. And, so people didn't know that he was going to turn into like the kind of player that he is now, right? Doing his airness impressions. But this is a very unique draft in that, at least with those guys in particular, you knew that like, well, if Anthony Edwards hits, he's going to be a superstar. If LaMelo hits, he's going to be a superstar. That's different this year. So it is absolutely unique in that respect. So I think for me personally, the way that I've approached this draft is I am trying to find players and prospects that I'm like, do I think this guy is going to be in the NBA in a few years? We've seen over recent years that teams are willing to move off of guys pretty quickly. And it doesn't necessarily matter if you're a first round pick. Like if they don't see it, they don't see it. They won't pick up that option on your rookie deal. So for me, I'm trying to identify the guys that I think are going to be good and are going to last, because we can sit and talk about this guy's a top 7 pick. Well, if this isn't a normal draft, that guy might be maybe the 17th pick in a normal draft. And the hit rate on those guys are not very high. So I'm just trying to identify the guys that I believe in. Sure, I'm looking for upside. The other thing is, like, now that I've been doing this a few years and I'm in the mix, I've had the opportunity to watch these guys in different settings, with Team USA and in practice settings and game settings. So I also have more of that behind the scenes look to where, if somebody jumping in right now that might be like, oh, this guy, he's got such a high ceiling. And I'm like, I don't know. I've, watched him practice for 5 days and, he doesn't really try that hard all the time. So like, I have a little bit more in my bag, but I just think this is about identifying like who's going to be able to be an actual asset to your franchise and not who's going to change your franchise.
Okay. So in the draft, there's usually this like discussion of fit versus best player. You want to take the guy who's maybe the most talented. You want to take a guy who can help you win now. With this draft not really having like that top guy, do you feel like that conversation changes at all with some of these teams just in general? And then like, from the Bulls perspective, is this going to be more about, in your opinion, like finding a guy who can fit in and contribute right away because that's what the best player might be in this situation? Or is it like we still have to take a swing on upside? And yeah, that might mean this guy falling out of the league because he may not be talented enough to really like build around, but at least you're still taking a swing. Like, how do you think teams are going to approach that? Just because this is very much a different draft year.
I think it's unique to the philosophy of the franchise itself, right? Like, and I think that there isn't a correct answer necessarily. Like, obviously, if there is somebody who is so much more talented than the player who is behind them on your board, you want to take that guy. You don't want to just take the guy who fits better just because he fits better. But take a look at the Detroit Pistons right now. That roster is a mess. They took everybody who is the most talented prospect at the time, not really considering, does this player fit with Cade, who is our building block, the real best player available that they got their hands on. They've just surrounded him with awful spacing and awful shooting, made his life miserable, and now they're just compounding it, right? Jaden Ivey, maybe he's going to be a great player one day, but he's driving into a paint filled with Jalen Duren and James Wiseman and Isaiah Stewart, and like, so that approach doesn't always yield the best results. So when we look back, you go, well, was that the best player available or not, right? So I think it's going to be completely where people are at in their draft. The Hawks, they're in a unique position, right? Like they're probably going to be like, we just have to take the best talent. We're never going to have the number 1 pick again. We'll figure it out. We're close, or at least that's what they're telling themselves, right? The Bulls, it's really going to depend like what direction they want to go. It's hard to answer. I tend to believe them with the way that they talk about things and that they want to compete. And so I think that they kind of should be looking at guys who are going to help them accomplish that goal. We've seen them swing on high upside guys. They definitely have a type. And like, has it yielded the best results? Like Dalen Terry, I like him. I love the energy he brings, right? He was always going to be a project. It's not really a surprise that like his development is taking as long as it has. So like, I think that they need to take guys who are going to be actually able to play and contribute, because you could take a high upside swing at 11 and that player could be, playing really well in Windy City. If you want to be like, hey, they had a cool highlight on that squad, that's great. But at the end of the day, like the Bulls, if they're going to do this middle ground, let's compete thing, get the guy that's going to help you. I mean, that's what's going to utilize, maximize the value of this draft pick.
I feel like in this draft, it's almost like the fit around you informs whether you're going to be the best available, maybe more than other drafts, if that makes sense.
That makes complete sense. I mean, this is a draft, like for people who say it's not, it's weak. It's only weak at the top. There are talented players. There are like value guys. It might look different because you might have a guy like Dalton Knetch who's 23, right? And you might be like, well, should you take a 23-year-old in the top 10? In most drafts, probably not. But like, he's still a talented dude who's a good prospect, and he has a unique story. So it's not exactly like he's just old and all of a sudden, he finally got good, right? Like, there's a Zach Edey who like is very contentious but like he is a good prospect who's just a very unique guy. There's talent, whether you're swinging or you're looking for the guy who's ready to contribute now. And sometimes the mistake we make is that we don't realize that the guys who have a seemingly higher floor are more likely to hit their ceiling. And we look back and we go, oh, I didn't see that from this prospect. But because they had that lower floor, which allows them to actually get onto a court to develop, like an actual NBA court. Because I don't know if you guys have watched a G League game lately. It's like, a pickup run with pros. It's very up and down. It's very loose. It's very sloppy. Talented guys, probably as talented as it's ever been, but like not exactly the best developmental context. I've had like high-ranking executives tell me that they use the G League to develop their coaches and their executives more than their players sometimes. So like, you want to be able to draft players that are going to be able to develop on an actual NBA floor and get those minutes. And sometimes those are the guys that don't appear to have the highest ceiling, but ultimately end up, looking back, they have a higher ceiling that we initially thought.
Corey, when you talk about ceilings versus floors, and you mentioning earlier that, one of your favorite things about, diving so deep into these NBA draft classes every year is that you find those guys that you believe in their ceilings. Now the Bulls fans know after lottery results on Sunday that they will be picking 11th. There are a handful of names that Bulls fans have started to kind of hone in on. I am curious, though, before we feed you any names that Bulls fans are interested in right now to get your take on those, your free reign answer, maybe one or two guys that you see right now in consensus mock drafts being taken in the back half of those lottery numbers that you see as guys with potential when we look back 5-10 years from now thinking, man, that guy could have gone top 5, should have gone top 5, but who might be on the board for the Bulls at 11.
Right. So I think Dalton Knetch, for me, again, he's a little older, but he is a sharp shooting wing. He's strong. He's really athletic. He did really well at the combine and a lot of the athletic testing. Great shooter, movement, stationary, little bit with the ball in his hands. Not necessarily the sexiest pick all the time, but for a team that really needs shooting, he might be available just because teams might be afraid of his age. Another guy that I like that maybe has a little bit more potential, and he also fits into kind of the archetype that the Bulls front office has looked at over the last few years. I like Cody Williams. He's, a 6'8" wing, brother of Jalen Williams. Not really the same player. He's more of like a connective wing. There are times where, he looks like he's coasting because he's got kind of like a monotone. He's not like very boisterous and loud, but he does a lot of things well. He shot it well on low volume, but he's got great touch around the rim, awesome in transition, good passer, really good size. Tailed off at the end of the year because he had injuries, but he's really intriguing as like an upside bet that some people have kind of soured on him a little bit because he dealt with like a facial injury and then a lower body injury, and he didn't really play well. He was fighting through it, and he did come back in the tournament and just play and contribute. He's interesting. I really like Devin Carter. Devin Carter is a 6'3" guard. He's got like a 6'8" wingspan. He's a dog. I'm an East Coast guy. I've seen him a bunch of times playing in the Big East. Comes from an NBA family. Really improved as a shooter this year. I'm maybe not buying the shooting completely as much as, he shot 37% on like crazy volume, but definitely got better. And he's just one of these dudes that like, when you look back, like wherever he got drafted, it was too low. Like, so I think he's another guy that 3-year college player who might drop a little bit because he's like a 6'2", 6'3" guard. And also he's a little older, but he's a guy that if he's there, like, and the Bulls took him, I'd be like, let's go. Like, that's the kind of culture shock that you need to inject in the team. It's what you were looking for when you signed Pat Bev and Devin Carter and those kind of guys, except it's a young on the way up instead of on the way down.
We're going to take our first break right there. For those of you who joined later or just joining us, we are chatting with the one and only Corey Tulaba, the draft guru for No Ceilings. Follow them for all of their great draft coverage. Subscribe to their YouTube channel as well. We will get more of Corey's thoughts on these 24 draft prospects on the other side of the break, which, of course, you know what to do while we're doing that. Hit that like button if you're hanging out with us on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Big Dave, who do we have up first today?
Oh, Baby Joey hit me up.
Of course he did.
Yeah, it's summertime, so Baby Joey likes to text me at this time. He said he was in the studio with Kendrick during the whole Kendrick-Drake beef. He said he might have wrote something. He don't want to tell me anything like that. So, you know.
He's the biggest hater.
It's what he does. You know what I mean? Because, you know, he told him Kendrick said to tell me this. They never understood.
They never understood?
They didn't get it. Is
that in the diss track?
That's what is. You got to listen. It's hidden underneath. That's what he played it for me. When he removed the track and Kendrick, you hear Baby Joey whispering, they never understood.
Baby Joey's a little shit starter.
Yeah, man. He don't play them games. He don't play them games, man, because they didn't understand. Why can't you just get some premium polarized shades that look this damn cool and put them on your face and not pay a lot of money for them? Shady Rays is going to do something about that, y'all, and get you ready for the season ahead with those quality shades that are built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays has got you covered with those premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays Independent Sunglasses Company offering that world-class product, that 5-star rating by over 300,000 people. Will told me that's a lot. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor, and as he proves, indoor adventiones. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find that perfect pair to match your style. You want something to fit the coif? He got you. You want something to fit hats? We got you. You want something to fit the 155-pound frame on young Joey Spathis? He got you covered on all of it, ladies and gentlemen. That's what Shady Rays does. So exclusive for our listeners out there, Shady Rays is giving away their best deal of the season. Head straight to shadyrays.com. Use the code CHGO for 35% off those polarized shades. Try it for yourself. Those shades that are rated 5 stars, over 300,000 people, because the Shady Rays were the Rays. Oh, just so shady.
Man.
God damn, I look good.
Just when you think Big Dave can't get any cooler.
You feel me? Son?
And you see him put on a pair of Shady Rays.
I just saw myself when I put them on. Like, wow.
You know, I just saw when I watched you put those on. Stadium swim out in Vegas for Summer League. That's what I saw right now.
Yes, sir.
That's what I saw.
Oh, it's coming.
Today's CHGO Bulls also brought to you by our friends at Ray Chevrolet.
Ray.
Make Ray Chevrolet your first draft pick for the new Chevy this May. Visit our partner to shop their Memorial Day sales event going on all month long at Ray Chevy on Route 12 in Fox Lake and at their website, raychevrolet.com. You can find the perfect tailgating vehicle. Bears right around the corner. Caleb Williams season. Get ready for all of your tailgating needs, and that includes a brand new Chevy from Ray Chevy. Yeah. Right now, you can get $10,000 off MSRP on a new 2024 Chevy Silverado, or lease the new 2024 Chevy Trax for only $199 a month for 36 months. That's an incredible lease deal.
Not bad.
You can also celebrate Memorial Day your way and shop over 125 of their vehicles priced under $20,000. And if you've heard of Ray Chevrolet, you've heard us tell you about that Ray Price Promise. You know what it is. The price you see on their website is the price you will pay when you go to the dealership and say, I want that car for that price.
Facts.
If anything, Ray and his team are going to work even harder to find you more savings when you show up to the dealership. Shop the Memorial Day sales event all month long by visiting Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake or raychevrolet.com. They've been serving the community since 1963. Together, let's drive.
Ooh. Silky.
Ooh.
Well done, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I'm digging that.
All right, we roll on talking NBA 24 draft class prospects with
our guy. Yes, go ahead. I didn't mean to, sir. I just wanted to.
You're so
continue
eager.
With I'm so eager.
You're so eager.
So
With No Ceilings NBA draft guru Corey Tulaba. Go ahead, Dave.
I just wanted to continue on the Devin Carter
sure.
prospect that you brought up, because the first time it was brought to my attention was our guy Ed Schuler from Bulls Gold, who was incredibly high on him. And I was on their show, Flex. I was just on their show talking about it, and I told him to break it down for me, and everything he said to me, Corey, I said to him, but dude, this does sound like Chris Dunn, right? Like everything you say to me sounds just like Chris Dunn. And he said, no, it's nothing like that. It's not like Chris Dunn at all. He said, don't worry about the shooting. Everything that you suggest that's exactly how he said about him. So what about him that you have seen just makes him that kind of dog that can actually change things for this Bulls franchise?
Yeah, same school too. So, and shout out to Ed. He's the best. So I think that he's just a little more polished. He's a little more in control than Chris was. And, Chris is, he's carved out. He's made a comeback and he's turned himself into a decent player. But I think that when you were looking at Chris Dunn, the prospect, you were like, I'm going to take this dude maybe at 3 or at 5. Can he turn into like Dwayne Wade? I'm pretty sure that was a name that people were throwing around at that time. Can he be this scorer, right? Like he's this hyper athletic guard that can get his own shot. That was a very popular kind of archetype back then. Devin Carter is very much in the vein of like people have expectations that he's going to be like a Josh Hart in this draft. Like he's averaging over 8 rebounds a game as a guard. And if you want to get super nerdy, it's like way better than statistically, like than every prospect that's been drafted that's a 6'3" guard and hit. Like he's the best rebounding guard like in the last 6 years or so. So he gets after it. He makes winning plays. He does the dirty work, the defense, the athleticism, all of that. Yes, I get it. A little bit similar to Chris Dunn, questionable shooting, sure, but you're not drafting him to be the lead guard in your franchise. You are drafting him to fill in a gap and be a player that you can rely on to potentially play playoff minutes as a role player. And he might star in that role, right? Like if you look at Josh Hart, not super sexy, not a guy that's going to lead, House of Highlights, Sports Center, anything like that. But where would the Knicks be without him, 18 rebounds, 7 assists, getting hot every now and then, making a shot? Like that's the kind of dude that Devin Carter is expected to be. He's not looking to change your franchise. So I think that's where the difference is with Chris Dunn. But that dude, yeah, like I said, dog, just makes winning plays. Like definitely the kind of guy that, Chicago would be proud to have wearing that jersey.
Going kind of back to this like fit versus best player thing with regards to Devin Carter, a lot of people are asking like, or saying like, stay away from guards. The Bulls have guards. You've got Io, you've got Caruso, you've got Kobe, obviously. Do you feel like Carter, or maybe it's Isaiah Collier, or one of these other guards that could be available at 11, do you feel like those guys could fit alongside a Kobe White and maybe an Io? Or do you think the Bulls are like, should not be worried about that and should be more worried about getting the most talent that they can on their roster, regardless of position?
I think Devin Carter can fit with those guys. I think he really, really complements a guy like Kobe White well. And I think the kind of player that Io's developed into, and really he showed to be in college too as a prospect, he can play off of different kinds of guards. Isaiah Collier, I'm a little less confident. He's a guy that really needs the ball in his hands a lot. And depending on who else, if DeMar is still here, I just don't see him having a role here that's going to maximize what he is. Like he needs a high usage role. He's a good playmaker, but he's a little out of control, sometimes a lot out of control. For as quick and bursty and strong and as like downhill running back as he is, like not a super high flying guy, has a little bit of hang time, but like isn't going to put a poster on you necessarily, can't shoot it and doesn't really project to shoot it well. Like I said, he's a guy I've been in practices with. Takes you a while to get a nice video of what his form looks like when it goes in sometimes. Like, he might get hot every now and then, but it's not consistent. He's got a lot of work to do. To me, that's the type of player where the Bulls are going to have to like tear this thing down and just be like, we're going for somebody that we think is going to be an all-star and we're going to do whatever we can to maximize him. Devin Carter is more of like, he might be that high-level player. He'll probably fit in no matter what what direction, almost like when the Bulls drafted Kirk Heinrich. Like obviously he's a guy who was a winning type of player, was able to, get it done and step up to challenges in certain playoff matches, but was still bad enough that if you want to tank for Cooper Flagg the next year, right? Like he's not going to change your franchise and stop and prevent that from happening. He'll just start the change in the culture. So I think that's kind of the difference in that. So I think if you're looking at talent and like, oh, we need to maximize the talent, the Bulls just need to identify a direction and form an identity that goes beyond what they've shown us the last few years. And
sounds like someone who not only knows about the NBA draft, but what's going on with the Bulls and has been for a while.
And that's so interesting because that's the aspect that hasn't really been discussed or talked about is the fact the Bulls do not have an identity, and maybe they can be looking for that in this draft at the same time. That's a brilliant point. I wasn't even contemplating that, man. Like, not just the talent that they need, because they need everything, but when we say everything, we literally mean everything, including a culture change at the same time, too. Makes a lot of sense, Corey.
New ownership.
Can I ask a quick one about big men? Just kind of switching to the other side of the positional scale.
Next, Will.
Yeah, I mean, people are talking about a backup for Vooch. People are talking about a replacement for Vooch. Edie's obviously gained a ton of steam here. Filipowski, Yves Missy, I really like. Deron Holmes, there's a ton of centers. Khalil Ware, I'm super high on it as just like tools guy. I mean, he's super interesting. What are your thoughts about just like this crop of centers? Who could be available? It sounds like obviously Sarr and maybe Klingon are going to be off the board at that point. But some of these other guys that could be available in the mid to late first round, who do you like and who do you think could be maybe kind of slot in as a backup to Vooch for the next year and then maybe eventually take over as that starting center?
I think I'm a Zach Edey guy. I've watched him in person a bunch of times over the years, and I've seen him develop. He's one of those guys, sort of the only other guys who have, kind of given me the, whoa, I can't believe what I'm seeing, is seeing Wemby live and seeing Bol live, where you're like, I don't understand how I am also a human being, and so are they. Zach Edey's like that because but obviously the opposite, because he's so thick and massive that you're like, he's not supposed to move like that. I think that some of the questions with him are a little bit overblown, not fully overblown, but a little bit. I think he's a better defender than he's being given credit for. And he, basically a dude that large, he measured at 7'4" without shoes, able to play 35 to 40 minutes a night in college is insane, just on the surface. Like Donovan Klingon maybe played a handful of games where he played 30 minutes. Like he's a guy who's just historically only played like max 20, 25 minutes. So I think if you're looking for like who could play behind Vooch and then who could take over, and again, this is more in the vein of like, hey, can we get somebody to help us continue to run on the treadmill? That's kind of the guy you would take. I don't really see him failing in the NBA. Some of the other guys like Khalil Ware, if you just do a quick Google search, it's going to be like super talented, maybe doesn't try hard all the time. So if that's your cup of tea, then awesome. More power to you. I wish you the best in taking a guy like that in the lottery. I've seen him a couple of times. I've never been blown away. I've never been overly enthusiastic about him. He's interesting. If you take a swing, I get it. He's a former, McDonald's All-American, all that stuff. But the reason that he didn't come out last year is because everybody questions about whether he's going to play hard. You mentioned Deron Holmes. I actually just hung out with him, watched him work out and train for the draft a couple of weeks ago. Love Deron. Awesome personality, really fills up the box score, can shoot the crap out of the ball now. Like that's something that's going to be a part of his game. He reminds me more of like a Bobby Portis kind of player. And that's the kind of role that I see him fitting. Now he might not punch anybody in the face in practice, but he's a little bit nicer of a guy, but he's at least a guy who is able to do a lot of interesting things on the basketball court. Again, more of a complimentary piece. Missy, a little raw for me, not exactly my favorite. Filipowski's interesting, but more of like a power forward. He's at times you're going to be like, oh, maybe he looks like Lauri Markkanen a little bit. And then you scale it back and you're like, maybe we should try to aim for like Kelly Olynyk. But he's a guy that I do think is at least going to be a good NBA player. So not a lot of the bigs like make me overly enthusiastic about taking them in this draft outside of maybe Klingon and Sarr. And even those guys have question marks.
I mean, by the way, Bobby Portis is out here catching strays. We love our guy, Bobby. I mean, okay, that was a great rundown of most of the bigs projected to go first round. I do want to just quickly loop back to Edey, because you can count me among his skeptics as far as whether or not his NBA game will translate. Like, there are a lot of Bulls fans who want him, and then there are a lot of Bulls fans who are like, Edey at 11, hell no. I feel like he's very polarizing. Yeah. Sometimes we like to tease our pal Stacey King about his catchphrase. One of his catchphrases, it's a simple game, when the Bulls are operating out of the low block. And you're like, yeah, it was a simple game when you played in 1992, Stacey. The game has changed. And when you look at one of the most, not one of the most dominant big, just put on an absolute masterclass in Game 5 for Denver last night, Nikola Jokic, he's operating some of his post possessions not from the low block, but like all the way out of the three-point line. I'm not seeing Zach Edey do anything. I mean, obviously Jokic, that's like the far end of the spectrum of how much the post game has shifted away from the basket in today's NBA. But I think there are a lot of skeptics of whether or not Edey and the low post scoring he was doing against tiny college teams is going to be as useful or even close to it at the NBA level. What do you think about that?
I mean, look, I agree with that sentiment, but I will say he's also a 100th percentile lob threat. If you go on Synergy, like he is an insane screener, one of the best screeners. If you're looking to get a guard open, you need a good screen set. He's a huge dude who makes contact. He's hard to get around. And when he does, all you got to do is throw it in the air. He is going to finish it. The other thing, like, I wish that if his playmaking was even like a touch better, you're talking about like he's the number one pick in the draft, right? Because you could talk about like, creating open threes through like drive and kick. If Shaq was in the draft, those threes would be created because you would have to put 4 guys on him. I don't think that Edey is going to have that defensive attention at the next level like he had in college. If you watched him in college, there were always 2 to 3 guys in his area, in his space. And he's gotten better as a playmaker, for sure. He's got a positive assist turnover, all that, good assist percentage, but he is a little bit slow sometimes to recognize because he knows that he could just turn and go over you. Obviously, guys are bigger, but he's also not going to have 3 guys draped all over his back. If he does, he is going to be able to make kickouts to, hopefully, for Chicago, more high-level shooters. So I think that if you look at, a guy who's going to be able to do the things he's great at for short spurts, but then also does have this other ability to like set a good screen and serve as a lob target too, I think he's a little bit more interesting when you don't just look at him of like, hey, at Purdue, he was this guy who just, got 1,000 post touches. Like he has more to his game, and I think he can adapt that in the NBA, if a coach gives him the opportunity to do that. And I think that they will, because I think it's going to be pretty hard to keep him off the floor. This is not a Boban scenario. Like I don't think Zach Edey is going to be guarding Kyrie Irving on an island. Not too many people can, right? Like he will struggle with certain matchups, but like he's a drop big who has a 7'11" wingspan. And if you watch some of the NCAA tournament games, you saw that like he's pretty good in that drop when he's able to actually go hunt blocks because it's the second half and now he doesn't have to worry about foul trouble. So I think he's a little bit more modern than he's given credit for, but I understand the skepticism because if a team is just like, hey, we're going to throw the ball to you in the post a million times, it's probably not going to lead to winning basketball in an age where you need to hit more threes than the other team to, get to the playoffs. So, but he's a good player, and that's valuable in this draft.
Talking about a backup, too, at the same time. He's not going to come in and start.
Right.
He probably will in the 2 years after Vooch's contract.
Unless we can trade Vooch for a ham sandwich this summer.
Oh, with cheese.
We got to take our next ad break. Plenty more on deck on the other side of that ad break with no ceilings draft expert, our guy Corey Tulaba, on the other side. Hit that like button if you haven't done it yet. If you didn't do it during the first ad break, now is your chance. Big Dave.
Joey Spath, what time is it?
Game time, Hoop.
Yeah. Joey's on it. Game Time is the authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip off. With killer. Last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guaranteed. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying those tickets. Those last minute deals, you can save up to 60% off buying last minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. They got the flash deals that save even more with exclusive in-app and select seats ahead of the game or the event. And with the zone deals, you can save even more when you choose the section, because Game Time will go on and do the selecting and save you some money. And of course, the big man favorite, views from the seats. We need to know where we're sitting, who we're sitting behind, where I can stretch out at, where's the concession stand in relation to where I'm going to be.
Where can those gams stretch out?
Oh, you got to see them, baby. They oiled up for a reason. They got to be seen. And you can do that with views and receipt. Find the seat that you want to be at. And they have the lowest price guarantee on Game Time, or they will credit you 110% of the difference. That is awesome. Take that guesswork, y'all, out of buying the Game Time tickets with the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code CHGO. Get yourself $20 off your first purchase. Terrence apply. That's CHGO. Get yourself $20 off your first purchase. Terrence apply. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Because Matt Peck. What time is it? Get out!
You know who's Game Time for tonight?
Tell me.
Chicago Sky, baby.
Oh, yes.
Season opener. Let's go. Go beat
it.
Dallas.
I'm with it.
By the way, do you see some of the ticket prices to get into Caitlin Clark's career debut? Man. That girl's going to sell some tickets.
Man, dog, can't wait for this game
Time.
to play this guy.
No kidding. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Coors Light. Between work, social media, stressing about who the Bulls are going to take with the 11th pick in next month's draft, all of the different challenges life throw our way, it's no wonder sometimes we get a little worked up, a little stressed out. So, Coors Light celebrates rising above all of that stress and chaos in our daily lives and choosing a chill mindset. Why not turn a rained-out barbecue into a karaoke house party?
Why not?
Or another White Sox loss into a friendly conversation with a friend about how much Jerry Reinsdorf sucks. Make the choice to choose chill, and then reach for a cold Coors Light. It's mountain cold refreshment, y'all. And when that can or bottle turns blue, you know it's as cold as the Rockies and ready for consumption. Coors Light is cold lager, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smoother finish. When you embrace a chill mindset, it's a good time to reach for Coors Light and crack it. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Coors Light can be delivered straight to your door with Instacart. That's right. Just go to CoorsLight.com/CHGO basketball. That's CoorsLight.com/CHGO basketball. Why get off your couch while you're watching these NBA playoff games? Have the Coors Light brought to you. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
White Sox won their last two. Just on that.
Hey!
Shout out. Dude.
Yay!
Shout out. Won their last two. Let's go.
Happy for them.
Blanking the Nationals. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Meanwhile, the Cubs can't hit a baseball to save their lives. They're getting blanked.
But you'll be there Friday, man.
I will be there Friday.
Represent.
God help us all. Filling in for Braggs in the bleachers
Oh,
on
ready.
Cody's birthday.
Oh, get ready.
I might die.
How much Bulls talk you think you'll have out there?
I hope none.
You're going to have some.
I'm going to go to the bleachers and enjoy some baseball, some sunshine, hopefully, a hot dog, some cold beers, and I hope no one asks me a damn thing about this basketball team
I love that
I
you
am
said-
very mad at right now.
I love that you said a hot dog and cold beers, plural.
Yeah.
This man understands.
You gotta watch the calories somewhere.
Well done. Well done.
One hot dog, 2 beers, better than 2 hot dogs, 1 beer.
Are you one hot dog, 2 beers, or just 1 and 1? Or none and none?
Two and one.
2 and 1?
What about you, Corey?
hot dogs.
If you're going to the ballpark, you eating 1 hot dog and drinking 2 beers, or eating 2 hot dogs and drinking 1 beer?
1-to-2 ratio.
1 to
1
2?
to 2?
Okay. All right.
I went to the Cubs game last week when they won on the walk-off, and
Flex.
I got 2 hot dogs. Like, we got there a little early, so I was like, oh, there's not like really a line. Get 2 hot dogs in this one sitting. They were gone within 3 minutes. Both of them. Both of them. My friend who was sitting next to me, who only got 1 hot dog, was still eating, was midway through the first. I was wolfed on 2. You know, that's how it goes sometimes.
Get it however you can get it, man.
Well, Joseph is a young growing boy.
That's true.
So
You
he
got to
needs
have it.
all the hot dogs and beer he can get.
At those hot dogs, right to the 155-pound frame.
Trying to get
There
to
you go.
160, baby.
There you
gotta
go.
get there.
We are chatting with Corey Tulaba, the NBA draft dude from No Ceilings NBA. Corey, you talked earlier about some of the guys you might like as sort of undersold, underprojected in this first round crop of players. Curious, conversely, if there are some guys you see in most mock drafts across NBA media right now who are projected to go in that top half lottery area of the first round, who you are a bit skeptical of, and if you're the Bulls at 11 would say, I know a lot of people have this guy slotted here, but I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah, not a Ron Holland guy.
Okay.
Not a Ron Holland guy. I get the appeal on the surface, right? Like athletic wing who plays hard. Give me some shooters. Give me some guys who could finish at the rim. Give me some guys who don't look the part but actually play the part. Now, he's really young, but he's a guy who, not a good decision maker. I think a lot of people are going to bill him as like this shot creator who could potentially be like a 20-point scorer one day. I think that is a very, very low outcome of happening. Like maybe I think if you're trying to project him to be that kind of player, you're looking at Jaylen Brown and that guy was pretty bad in college too, and look at him. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities, but I think that was a very specific, developmental context that he ended up in. It took him a while to get there, and most players don't reach that. So for Ron Holland, he measured a little bit smaller than you would like. And I mean, I just think he's really, 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 really raw. He is, I guess, kind of the player that the Bulls like, they like those toolsy raw dudes with potential. But I mean, he can't finish at the rim as an athlete in the half court. He's good in transition and he'll look fun there. He can't shoot 24%. And I know you're like, oh, well, it was the G League, NBA 3-point line. 24% to 40 is a big jump. 24 to 36 is a big jump. And I just don't know if you're looking at it. I think people will be disappointed if he becomes like a hustle guy. And that's what he was known for a little bit in high school. But the player that I think he's being billed at, I'm a stay away. The G League Ignite won 2 games and they were getting blown out by 50 in a bunch of them. So I know that, they're playing against professional grown men and everything, but they were historically bad, so bad that they shut the program down. And he was the star of that team. So, he's just not for me. If he's for anyone else, I get it. I see the appeal. He's another guy. Wasn't impressed with the way that he kind of carried himself at a lot of the Team USA practices and that kind of stuff. So, maybe not the highest feel. I think now you see you need really quick processing ability to play deep into the playoffs. And I don't think that's him, even if you're trying to look at a Patrick Williams, I think he makes pretty good decisions when the ball is in his hands. He at least has that. I don't think Ron really has that. And I don't want him making high leverage decisions. So, and with this specific team in general, I think it would be an absolute disaster. And again, he'd be, getting real familiar with Team Windy City there. So I'm a stay away.
I want to kind of bring it back locally here also. Talk about the 2 guys from Illinois that are now in this draft too, and Coleman Hawkins and Terrence Shannon Jr. Just wanted to know your opinion on those guys. Coleman Hawkins, just, again, I think every other player I've seen projected, super high and not or in the second round, along with Terrence Shannon Jr., who I've seen be 6 and 36. So what are your opinions on both of these guys?
I think Coleman Hawkins is somebody you take it in the second round. You take a chance on, the fact that he's a pretty big dude who has interesting skills. This year is the first year that he actually shot it pretty effectively. He's always looked like he should be shooting it effectively. It just doesn't go in. This year they started to go in. He's interesting as a passer. He's got interesting tools. It's just he's a second rounder because he's a little older and he's still not super consistent all the time. And that consistency, matters when you're a little bit older. You could be inconsistent when you're young and raw, but when you've played for a few years, but he was impressive this year. Terrence Shannon, I mean, I don't know if he's going to get drafted or not. The thing about him right now is he has a trial, for a case. So teams may just want to stay away. Personally, I've never been a big fan of him as a prospect because I think that he has such a physical advantage athletically. Like in a straight line, he is insanely fast and he is a powerful leaper. And in college, like you can kind of blow by the guys, even in, the Big Ten, you can blow by guys that are probably going to be working in an office in a couple of years. You can't do that all the time in the NBA, especially he's so left-hand dominant, right? Like it's not like he's somebody who can get going with both hands. His shot, I'm not a believer in it. So the type of player that he is, I've never seen the appeal as like a first rounder necessarily. He's always had, in my opinion, like the second round talent, because if he figures it out, he does have the athletic traits and the physical traits that you need in the NBA. But I think with everything he has going on behind the scenes, teams might be skeptical. I've also heard that there are teams, there's a team at the end of the first round who expect him to be gone in the 12 to 25 range because they've heard, that the intel and the way his trial is going to go is going to be okay. So I have no opinion on whether it will or it won't, and the moral dilemma of selecting him and what that means. He has interesting tools, but he also has flaws at the same time. And if you add in the other stuff along with that, for me, it seems like kind of a stay away kind of player.
Are there any guys that you think are like currently kind of projected in the like 3 to 6, 7, 8 range that could end up falling on draft night into the Bulls' lap? Because to me, like I have Sar and Topic 1, 2. Mm-hmm. Behind that, maybe like a smaller tier of like Castle and like the Kentucky guys. The G League guys might be in there for some people. I know you said you were lower on Holland, but there's kind of just like this bigger tier, I feel like, from like really 3 into like the end of the lottery with guys like Devin Carter and Collier rounding that out. Do you think that like anything kind of crazy happens with guys jumping into the top 10 that could maybe push one of those higher end guys that's currently projected in maybe like the top 8 range down into the Bulls' lap? And if so, how do you feel like that player might kind of fit in or just perform at a level with a team like the Bulls?
To be completely honest, I think outside of Klingon, Sar, Topic, and Castle, I think any player could end up slipping to the Bulls. So I don't think that this is the kind of draft where I'm like, no, there's definitely a group of top 10 guys. Like Collier, I'm going to be honest, I don't necessarily think he's going to go in the lottery. Like I think he's going to be one of those guys that maybe slips like a Cam Whitmore, like a Tyrese Maxey. Whether that looks foolish down the line, we'll see. But like he was pretty bad this year. Ultimately, he played better when he returned from injury, but like historically, the numbers that he put up, it's like Jaden McDaniels and I think Zach LaVine are like the only guys who actually made it in the NBA who put up the numbers that he put up. So it's like not a great track record of that. But I think that any number of guys like Richeche, I could see him slipping to the Bulls. Honestly, like
him.
Yeah, he's a guy that I could see slipping. People are starting to get lower. ESPN's really the only kind of like public facing scouting service that has kind of stayed with him in that top 3 group. He started out blistering hot as a shooter where he was like 48% from 3 and he's like legit 6'10". Which is, a pretty good package to start at, but he really started to struggle as he started going deeper into his international season, which he's playing longer than the college guys are. So like you'd expect some inconsistency, but he's also always been a sub 70 free throw percent shooter. So it's like, how real is the actual shooting if like you can't shoot free throws? Like typically there's a pretty good correlation between free throw shooting and 3-point shooting in the NBA. And then the other thing is, like, he had a really bad FIBA tournament over the summer. I think he had, like, 2 points in the, final game. So he has a tendency to disappear. He's a guy that I could see slipping. Just because if you don't believe in the shooting, it's like you're just getting a 6'10" dude who I guess can play defense but can't really shoot. And that's maybe he can shoot, but maybe he can't. And it's like maybe interesting, but maybe it's not. So maybe you take that guy around pick 11, so I think he could be there. I think Buzelis could be there. He's another guy that I think ultimately could be there. It's just like all these guys who if you use your imagination, it'll work and maybe it will, but like those are the kind of guys that ultimately end up. And the back end of the lottery. You got to use your imagination a little bit. That's why they're at the back end and not the top of it.
We got to squeeze in one more quick ad break, and then when we come back, we'll wrap things up with our guy Corey here, who I want to get a few of your thoughts. I know we've kind of touched on and made a few jokes, but what the heck the Bulls are doing this offseason.
Yeah.
Because as our guy Will informed us, you are sort of a quasi-Bulls fan yourself, which is a
Pretty
frustrating thing to be right now.
Yes, sir.
Hit that like button if you didn't do it the first or second time around. Do it for our friend Troll Joseph. He needs your thumbs. Circus Sportsbook. Get your bets in tonight for NBA playoff action. We also know that Circa is the best place with the best values for futures bets. If you want to put a bet down while there's still conference semis going in the East and West on who is hoisting Larry O'Brien later in June, the best value on those kinds of futures bets is at Circa. Also, great place to make golf bets if that's your thing. PGA Championship on deck starts tomorrow.
Hello,
for all you
friends.
majors nerds out there. The next one's on deck. Make your pick for who's going to be hoisting the PGA Championship on Sunday. Do it at Circa. Always striving to have starting odds at -110 for game spreads, point total over-unders, and things like that. Unlike a lot of other sports bettors and their competitors who push those starting odds to -115 or -120 for no good reason at all. They also have the best unparalleled customer service in the sports betting business. Real people behind that Circus Sports brand and their app who resolve any issues you might have in a timely fashion, unlike other sports bettors who use the dreaded chatbots. We will kill the machines. We will prevail. Humanity. All aspects of that Circa app are being run by the same team that runs the main Circus Sportsbook at Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. Shout out Summer League. Download the Circus Sports Illinois app at circusports.com/Illinois-app to sign up today. Be on the lookout also for their Circa events, watch parties, and tailgates. Speaking of, mentioned it earlier, hanging out with us, the Circa crew, Murphy's Bleachers, the real Bleachers, and then almost home for our 1-2-3 punch of Cubs baseball on Friday.
That's right.
If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-426-2537. Text GAMB to 833-234 or visit areyoureallywinning.com.
.com. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking to you out here. Look at me right in the eyes. It's time to become a diehard, y'all. It's time to do it. Become a diehard and be an even more awesome person because you will be more smarter. That's right. In your brain and your mind, too.
Wow.
That's right. 2 things. That's 2 for 1. That's a beautiful thing, man. Die Hard memberships are awesome. You get podcasts and live shows on every team every day, like this awesome one right here, what I got, Corey. Post-game shows, of course, the premium written content from the golden pen of the GOAT himself, Will the GOAT Gottlieb.
The draft database.
And it's all for your members at ALLCITY.com. 20% off events. You get that as well. Dope merch for all teams. And you'll get a free shirt when you become a member, like one of these right here that this man Peck is modeling that he looks amazing in.
Go Sky.
Or this
Baby
one.
blue really brings out his eyes. And look at that one right there. That
The
one really
Chicago
brings out your
collection.
soul.
Great, like my soul.
That's right. Brings it out, baby. I enjoy it. Oh, and of course, the members-only Discord, as we like to call the CHGO Lounge. You come hang out there and enjoy. And when you come to these events, you can meet Matt, you can meet myself, and you can meet the superstar of the show, Joey Spathis over here, man. That's
right.
155 of them right there, ready to go, shake your hand, and awesome things will happen. So come hang out with us, man. Tailgates, watch parties, all those things, you will get 20% off of all of them. And we got a bunch of events coming up, y'all. So you'll be the first to know and the first to save. So come on, become a diehard, save some money, be more awesome. It's easy.
Crazy amount of events coming up here over the summer. We can run through some of them here.
Go ahead, Joe.
Tons
I
of
mean,
them.
fall. It just announced October 16th.
Bears
I don't know what the
official
14th
London date.
Chicago
Chip, chip.
versus Jacksonville in London.
Chip,
True fan travel. We got the White Sox takeover.
Yeah.
We got the CHGO Cookout Classic Golf Scramble.
Wow. Speaking of golf,
You like that dog right there, man?
I love that
Like
dog.
that?
That looks like a proper
Obviously,
Chicago dog.
Feeling that dog?
Friday
Okay.
120 clubs.
Ooh, look at
Yes,
that
sir.
one. That's going to be packed.
Lot of events you want to be a diehard for.
Absolutely. Sign up today to get all of those perks and discounts. And, of course, most importantly, right now, access to that Will the GOAT draft database. All right. Little time remaining with our guy, Corey, here from No Ceilings NBA draft coverage. I don't know if you saw it, but our pal DeMar DeRozan was on the Run It Back program by FanDuel earlier today, and it's been making its way around. Hilariously perfect name for a show in which DeMar DeRozan is sitting there talking about how badly he wants to stay with the Bulls. Continuity 4.0. It seemed from a couple of your comments earlier, Corey, that you are like-minded with us and a majority of Bulls fans who do not want to see the DeMar, Zach, Vooch Bulls trot back out there again in the 24-25 season. What do you make about DeMar's latest comments and the fact that this team's VP of basketball said when they lost the play-in tournament, changes need to be made, but all signs since then have pointed to, just kidding.
Well, at least Lonzo's 70% healthy.
There you go. New podcast.
He's coming
back.
Look, I get it from DeMar's perspective. Chicago's a great city. Why would you want to leave, right? Like, great franchise. I think he was an incredible free agent signing. I think he maximized the value that he possibly could have maximized over that contract. Great years as a Chicago Bull. Nothing but positive things to say about him. The Chicago Bulls should be rebuilding. I mean, they're stuck in the treadmill. There is only one way to get out of this. And it's not with, Lonzo getting that extra 30% of his knee back. And it's not with Zach LaVine and his contract leading the Chicago Bulls. Like, at a certain point, this team is what it is. Vooch is not going to all of a sudden be able to, play the cat and mouse game in a drop scheme a lot better than he currently can. The talent just isn't there. Now, there's interesting things, right? Like, Io's on a great contract. Kobe's on a great contract. There are some positive things that we can say about the team, but where they're at right now, like, look, the next draft, like, I just got back from the Nike Hoop Summit in Portland. The next draft is just absolutely loaded with talent. It is the opposite of this draft. Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, Cooper Flagg. There's just so many guys that, like, this is a draft that you would like your team to be involved in any kind of way. And winning 38 games and, making it to the second game of the play-in tournament again, it's just not that interesting when you know how, it's going to end. I love competing. I'm usually, like, pro-compete. The Bulls aren't really competing. Like, they could beat any team on any given night, but they can lose to any team on any given night. That's mediocrity. I don't really want to be a mediocre basketball fan when I see the way that all these good teams, like, the way that they're playing. I get it. Like, I don't need to see DeMar and Zach do their back and forth thing. And I just don't, I'm over it. I know that most fans are, but I also don't believe that things are going to change. So I guess, we make them the best with the situation.
Reality and just, like, give him all the upvotes. Point. You won around the horn today.
First, question: can I see that shirt that you're wearing, though, sir? I see that Bull shirt you got on right there.
Oh, that's vintage.
Okay, yeah,
that looks vintage.
Yeah, that's all right there. Feeling that. That's all right there. But also, just a wellness check on you, since being a Bulls fan. Just how are you? Because I know how hard it's been on my man Matt over here as he continues to throw his hats. Yeah, it's been like this for him. It hasn't been great for anyone here. So how has this been for you, watching this team have this potential a couple years back to be an actual force in the East, to be a team that you're just like, I don't want to see this anymore?
Yeah, it's tough. I got spoiled. I grew up in the Jordan era, so obviously you get accustomed to winning, right? But then also I'm like, a little kid, so you don't. That's what you expect. You go through some tough years, and then all of a sudden you get this really great group of ragtag guys who, go from being an atrocity to, really making you feel stuff with the way that they play. I just met Luol Deng at the Hoop Summit, and, I got to thank him for all of those years and with that group. And that was a team that I can identify with. And even if we weren't going to win the title, and obviously we all thought when things were going right before, that moment that, I don't like talking about, we all thought we had a shot at least, to push, the best teams, and you had hope. And I think that when you cover the draft, the one thing that you realize that fans need is hope. because all those teams at the top, they're hoping that they land the next superstar. So as a fan, you just hope that you can compete and you could feel something and identify with the team. Back to identity. We don't have anything that we can identify with. We don't have a bunch of guys that are overachieving, right? We have guys that are just achieving, so it's kind of been like, I don't blame any fan that's kind of like, I'm just checking out. If we make the playoffs, like I'll tune in and I'll watch and whatever. And like, I'll go to a game because it'll probably be fun, but if not, like, I'm not going to be super locked in. For me, it's at least I have the draft to put all my focus in, but I'm still a fan and I'm still watching the games, and it's kind of a bummer, to be perfectly honest, because even if we're not going to win the title, there's no hope. And
I think that one of the pieces that you said that I think is a really good point is like those like mid 2000s teams and even like into the Derrick Rose era, like those teams were very easy to root for because they were like Chicago teams. I feel like this era of Bulls basketball, like, they're kind of like at the same level of like, the baby Bulls, where it's like probably going to be a first round out at best, but like it just doesn't. I don't feel like there's the same connection there with the fan base to where like you really identify with this team. So I really agree with that, and I think like last one for me, you kind of mentioned Connect earlier, but like, is that the guy for you where like this would be my number one? I would be the most happy if he came to Bulls. It would give me that little bit of extra hope that I've been missing these last few years. Is Connect that guy for you, or is it somebody else?
No, there's nobody who will give me that extra bit of hope for where the Bulls are picking.
You're fitting right in on this podcast, my friend.
Don't get me wrong. Do I like Dalton Knetch? Do I think he's going to be a really good player? I do. Do I think he's the difference between making the playoffs, making the play-in game, being a top 6 seed, being a top 4? He's not the guy that's going to take you to the next level, and don't get me wrong. I also, for being it's easy to be like overly critical and harsh. It's really hard for management when you have contracts just weighing you down that are due to injury. And this has been the story of Bulls fans for a decade plus, of just like injuries of this really cool idea that looked like it was working. And then all of a sudden it's not anymore. But that's where we're at. The situation, the hole that we've dug ourselves into, we just don't have an out. And the 11th pick in any draft, even if it's a strong draft, the 11th pick is not your out. You might get lucky, right? Like the Milwaukee Bucks took a chance. They got Giannis, outside of the lottery. The Denver Nuggets got Jokic in the second round. Like, so is it possible? Yeah. But like, these are very, very rare occurrences that you can't hang your hat on. And, this is not like found money. Like we traded for a pick and we have this really strong team, and all of a sudden we have a lottery pick. We're just like an okay team. We're very okay. And the 11th pick, you get a very okay player. And like, that might be a player you could identify with. And like, but that's why Devin Carter is exciting, because he's a guy that reminds me of those old Bulls teams. Like he has that heart and that grit and that toughness. And even if he's flawed in certain ways, he's going to bring it every night and maximize his potential. The thing that would, as a fan, would kill me to watch is thinking that because we're stuck in mud, we need to swing and try to hit a home run, except we're swinging at a pitch that's way in the dirt. And like, that's kind of what these prospects would be if we took a swing, in my opinion.
They're very okay. Sometimes they're not quite okay. Or as we basically said every post-game show from mid-February on, Corey, sometimes the Bulls are 4 games under 500 and sometimes they're 2. But they're always 3 games under 500. We are just about out of time, Corey. But before we let you go, I want to give you the opportunity to sort of let our CHGO Bulls listeners and viewers know more about what you and your crew are doing over there at No Ceilings. Some of the best draft coverage that's been around for the last few seasons. I just saw you already got a shout out from our pal Doug Tonis, Bulls super fan, saying he couldn't wait to tune into today's episode, saying that you and what you guys are doing at No Ceilings is the best NBA draft coverage that's out there right now. Tell our listeners and viewers where they can find your stuff and about what you guys are doing covering these draft prospects.
Yeah. Shout out Doug and the Real GM Bulls board, dating back almost 20 years now. So at No Ceilings, we have kind of tried to fill the void of, the old school kind of Draft Express website before they went to, the overlords of Disney media. So we are, just a group of independent dudes who love the game of basketball. We love scouting. We love watching young guys grow. I like to say that we're kind of like an indie label. We will let you know who's up next. And as we've grown, we've gotten an opportunity to do some really cool things and go to really cool events and see these guys in really cool settings. One of the things that I'm doing now, I'm watching film with these prospects and they're breaking it down and we're having film sessions together, which is something that I took over from, my mentor, Mike Schmitz, who's now with the Blazers. So we have a podcast. We go 4 days a week, breaking down the draft. We got a bunch of different shows from all our guys and our girl, and we write articles 5 days a week, completely free. We do have a paid tier with maybe you get some intel, some stuff that we hear, rumors around the league, stuff like that. You get access to our Discord. And like you mentioned our YouTube. That's where all our video stuff is. So we're, multimedia, trying to hit the entire gamut and, follow these guys, not only as they come up through college, we follow them into the league as they start developing and are maybe years 1 through 3 to try to see what the players that they can turn into. Because one of the biggest things that young aspiring scouts miss is that you really need to understand the direction of the NBA if you're going to scout college players for the NBA. So we still love the game. We still all are fans. And, we try to keep it as, in depth as we possibly can while being as accessible as we can. So you understand it. We never talk down to you. We want to keep it light, fun. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that thus far. And we got a real good community with us, as do you guys and your show. Big fan, obviously, as a Bulls fan. I got to go somewhere to get my frustrations out. So
that's right. We're always all here for each other.
On here.
Bulls Nation, if you aren't already, follow Corey at Corey Tulaba on Twitter. Follow No Ceilings on Twitter at No Ceilings NBA. Subscribe to their YouTube channel as well, No Ceilings NBA. Check out
tremendous
their great
work.
draft
Really
coverage.
learn a ton from them.
We still have so much time between now and when the draft happens. So I'm sure you guys are going to be cranking out all sorts of wonderful content over there. Corey, we appreciate you joining us, man. Let's do it again. Tell our guy Max Bombach we said what's up. Let's talk to him soon, too, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yes,
right
sir.
on. All right, for our panel producer, Joey Spath, is Will the Go Collie, Big Dave, I am Peck, and for our guest, Corey Tulaba. Thanks for tuning in, Bulls Nation. Hit that like button on your way out. Tomorrow, same time, same place, 4 p.m. Central, another fresh episode for y'all. Until then, enjoy playoff action tonight. Go Sky!
Yeah.
See Red, be good.
Love y'all. Peace.